everybody, and welcome to tonight's very special Session Zero of May Black Roses Bloom. This is something that I personally have been waiting for I'm old, and it's been a really, really long time. I can't wait to get started, and guess what, guys? You don't have to listen to me talk. Don, take it away, brother.
Well, I want to say hello. I'm Don. I'm going to be the dungeon master for May Black Roses Bloom. And like Greg, I'm maybe not quite as old. I've grown up with Dragonlance for a long time, and I couldn't be more excited to tell this story. This is a story that I've had in mind for a number of years, and I love all of these people that I'm playing with today. This is a session 0, so we're going to be going through and talking about a lot of things. I definitely encourage players and chat, if you have questions, throw them up. Kiana's awesome. She's going to be helping to make sure that I don't miss any of your questions. And we're going to talk about our story, and we're going to talk about our characters and this amazing world that at one time was the pinnacle of D&D. And now we get to come back to it. For me, it's been 15 years since the last time I played a Dragonlance game, and that's a long time. So thank you for being here, chat. I really appreciate your support. For anyone who's not familiar with Dragonlance, this is a world created by Margaret Wise and Tracy Hickman. This was, like Forgotten Realms, a major part of Dungeons & Dragons many years ago, and they created a number of amazing novels that kind of built out the characters and the history of the world. And those books and then those novels are going to play a big part in what we do here. But before we get into all of that, I just want to go around and have the cast introduce themselves, talk just very briefly for now, and we'll go more into depth later about their characters, who they're going to be playing. And from there, we'll start to talk more about the world and how we're adapting Dragonlance to 5th edition, which does take a little bit of work, but amazing work, fun work. So let's go around now, and we'll start with, we'll go back to Greg. Let's start with Greg.
Man, I'm a little emotional. I'm not going to lie about this. This is a campaign like I mentioned before. When I was a kid in the 80s, because it seems to be a recurring theme since it's facts, that I am old. And the glorious part about the age that I am is that I was gifted Dragons of Autumn Twilight by a very dear friend. And like I said, this campaign, more than anything I believe I've ever played in any segment of my life, this hit at the perfect time for me to play a character that I have dreamed about but never played for 30 plus years. He is a knight. His name is Sir Reardon Pathwarden, and he has been living in my heart for 3 plus decades. He's not the greatest guy. All people from Dragonlance are a bit flawed. He's flawed, but he's a part of me and has been with me for a while. I can't wait to play him. And Don, thank you for allowing me the chance to take him out of my heart and stroll around a world that I had only dreamed about. I cannot wait to play this game. Give it to somebody else before I cry.
Oh man. I gotta say thank you for having me on the channel and letting me tell this story. This is something that I was probably gonna do for a home game, but to do it here with all of you, people that I admire a lot, it's amazing. We'll keep going though. Billy, go ahead and introduce yourself, your character, and let us know what your experience with Dragonlance is before, if you've ever had it.
Yeah. All right, so hi, I'm Billy. Relatively fresh to the scene, but super stoked to be playing because my first really introduction to high fantasy was Dragonlance. elementary school, somebody let me borrow a tattered up old copy of Dragons of Autumn Twilight, and I got lost in Sturm and Flint and Caramon and Raceland and Tanis and everything that ensued over the several novels. So knowing that people would be super faithful to Dragonlance populace, I kind of went off the beaten path and chose a world that was really fleshed out by Richard A. Knack, and I chose a Minotaur whose name is Rook on Ogorok. There's a lot to be researched about the culture, but the suffix of his first name indicates that he has no bloodline. So he's like a lost thing trying to make his way into the world, and it's a real awesome opportunity to take something that may not be as popular as all the other stuff in Dragonlance, but still heavy, and play around with it, do something a little bit different, take something from a culture and transform it, and like as campaigns start off, some people will have things that are very set in stone, but some things people will have things that are more pliable, and this is one of the more pliable things because he's got concepts that aren't there anymore, and we'll delve into the specifics playing, but anybody who's ever played with me knows that I really enjoy playing like strong, brutish characters, and this one is something totally different for me, and I'm really excited to be playing with all y'all. And that's it.
I've gotten to play with Bill before, and I know you're newer to the community, but Bill and I have been best friends for a long time. He's a great role player, and I can attest that it's mostly barbarians. He plays a really good barbarian, and I'm excited to see what Rook on brings to the story. We'll go on over to Allison next. Hi, Allison.
Hi, Don. Hey, everybody. It's Allison. I am so incredibly excited to finally have arrived at this moment, and get to play in this world with all of you, with this amazing group of fans and viewers that have already been so incredibly supportive. As we've been sort of teasing out the game and building buzz. Thanks so much for that. I believe it or not, have probably been playing this game even longer than Greg has. In fact, I think we compared driver's licenses one night at a bar, didn't we? I think that's right. And so, in fact, I have been playing D&D long enough that Dragonlance was kind of the flashy new thing after we'd already been playing for several years. I was able to kind of, as they were coming out, get into Dragons of Autumn Twilight and a few others, and then got to play a little bit as those settings began to be released as modules for second edition, and then sort of left that world behind and found my way into others as it continued to grow around me. So I'm just incredibly excited to be coming back to it. I am playing a character whose name is Sabria Sunashal. Sabria is a 5th level cleric, light domain. She is a warrior priestess of the god Sirion, keeper of the flame, god of light, which I think is going to be super fun to play in a world that, as you can see, just looking at our art, is probably gonna be super dark. I'll have more to say about Sabria as we go on. The last thing I'll just say, though, is Sabria is the first cleric I've played since the very first character I ever rolled for D&D, for the basic edition back in 1980 something. So I'm excited about getting to kind of slip back into those shoes again as well.
Yeah, I have the benefit of we've been talking about the characters behind the scenes for a while now, and everybody's brought such amazing creativity and passion to their characters, Allison has written a goddamn book about Sabria. I love this character. I'm really excited to see you play her. I'm really excited to get a chance to play with you again, and we'll get more into that here shortly. But in the meantime, I haven't gotten a chance to play with Laura Lania before, but I am really excited to. I know, I know that Dragonlance means something to you too. But please say hello and tell us about your character and about Dragonlance.
Hi, I am Laura Lania, Honoria Solanthus, and I'm already... Okay. I'm a wizard of New Atari, and the very first time I read Dragonlance, it was TSR, back in the day when stuff was TSR, and I don't want to get too personal in it because I don't want to make people feel sad or sorry or anything, but I didn't have a great childhood. My escape was reading. And Dragons of Autumn Twilight, it was such a weird thing because it was just one of those books that in the library as a kid I reached out and I grabbed, and I just happened upon the first one. Dragons of Autumn Twilight. I could have picked random order. I was just reading, and I went through that, and believe it or not, I really closely related to Kitiara out of all of the characters. Raceland has a very Raceland has a very special place in my heart as I love wizards. But I am the oldest sister of two younger brothers. One of my youngest brothers has a mental handicap, and the way that she stood up to the plate and took care of her family was just something that it was the first time I got to feel like a hero through Dragonlance. And so taking those characters and bringing them and playing them and reading them is something that when I didn't have the strength to keep going as a kid, I got the strength from Dragonlance. And Laura Lania was the first character I played in Dragonlance. Unlike some of my fellow cast members here, I've actually had the chance to play in the world. And I never thought I'd get to see her again. So playing a wizard of New Atari who is borrowing power from another wizard to come home again into Dragonlance and to finish that story is something that just feels so right. And I talked about this with the cast before we went and started going. This character isn't going to be a Twitch D&D character for me. This character isn't going to be a production. This character isn't going to be something that we do to hold the audience. You guys will be there, and I love you, but when I go into Dragonlance, when I go into Kryn, I'm going home, and I'll see you on the other side, and that's me.
Yeah,
Well,
I think I think you can see that we all love Dragonlance, and
It's
we
okay.
all really passionately about our connections to the characters we're going to be playing and the story we're going to be telling. And we'll talk a lot about that tonight. But I want to say again, thank you to all the players. Thank you guys for being here and for being nostalgic and brave and creative and powerful. All of those things means a lot to me because those are the things that I hold myself to. Let's go ahead and move on and talk to Kiana. Hi, Kiana. How are you doing today?
I'm full of feels. Oh, wow, yeah. Hi, I'm Kiana. You know what? I'm gonna be upfront about it. Dragonlance came out before I was born in the first book. I am a baby when it comes to this. I am part of the new generation of D&D players that started off with Twitch, with people who were streaming, and I watched, came in, and found this community. So I've been learning a lot about Dragonlance recently. Been doing a lot of research because this world has really kind of captured my fascination. And to be playing with all these people who have such entrenched love and passion for it had been a real motivator and had been really added a personal element for me as I delve into this world and to this story and everything. And I'm super, super excited to, for some of you in the audience who may not know Dragonlance as well, to dive in and get going and learning all these really cool things. Yeah, I will be playing Avrin. She is a half-elf rogue. She's kind of everything, you know, that isn't me normally. She's just all of this, you know, turmoil and, you know, angst, really. She's an angst ball. I'm shoving all of my angst into her. Just, you know, because it's super interesting to play out those things. So we'll be talking more about her later on. And yes, as we said before, I am in the chat. I'll be helping to regulate all the questions. So please ping me, at me with any questions, and I'll make sure Cass sees them. Yeah, super excited to get into this.
Yes, and thank you for taking the questions too. You are awesome. And I think Dragonlance it's there are things like Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire that are very much in the public eye now, and Greg hit on this too. Something special about Dragonlance to me, what I learned from Dragonlance when I was a kid and reading the books, is that you can be an imperfect person. You can be a person with pride or hate in your heart, and you can still make a difference, and you can still reach across the boundaries of people who feel differently from you, people who see the world differently from you, and find a connection and find a common ground. And I think sometimes that's lost in a lot of fantasy. But Dragonlance had that from day one, from chapter 1 of the first book that Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman wrote. And it's something that I feel in my heart too, is that we're not all perfect people all the time. We're not all good people all the time. But that doesn't have to hold us back from trying. And in my mind, that's what makes a hero, is someone who tries despite their imperfections and despite their obstacles. And we'll get into your characters here in a little bit, but I know that you guys have all imbued that spirit in the work that you've done and prepared. So before we get there, before we talk more about your characters, there's a number of things that I want to talk about, because Dragonlance is a very different fantasy world from Forgotten Realms, which I think, you know, folks who are newer to D&D are much more familiar with Forgotten Realms and the other worlds. There's a number of differences, and it's never been adapted entirely officially to 5th edition. I'm pretty sure, and if I get anything wrong, forgive me, I'm not an expert. I'm a lover, but not an expert of Dragonlance. But I'm pretty sure that there wasn't an official 4th edition adaptation. It's been a long time since it was adapted, and it has a number of challenges. So I think before we talk about characters, it's a good idea to start with talking about what May Black Roses Bloom is, what we want it to be, and what it's not. Like I said, I'm returning for the first time in a long time. As I'm designing, as I'm writing, I'm rereading the books that I haven't read in 15 years, and 15 years is a long time. I've absorbed a lot of information in that period of time, and I've forgotten more than I know. So I'm relearning at the same time as we're going through and reconnecting to the characters and the stories that I loved when I was younger. May Black Roses Bloom, it's not going to be the War of the Lance. It's not going to be the books. It's going to be its own story, a story told through these characters, by these characters. It's going to be unique. It's going to be darker, sometimes significantly darker than a lot of the Dragonlance stories. It's influenced by Dragonlance, but it's also influenced by Ravenloft, and we'll get into that because old school Ravenloft had some ideas that were really, really compelling. And I love Ravenloft, and I grew up with Ravenloft just like I grew up with Dragonlance. And I can't help but want to find a middle ground there. This won't be a Ravenloft game, but it will be influenced by that. So I wanted to say that first, that if I get anything wrong about the canon, about the story, it's either because I'm not an expert or it's because we're trying to tell our own story. And sometimes the needs of our story might take us in a slightly different direction. And so for anyone who's a diehard fan, if I get something wrong, that's one of those two reasons. A couple of the books that I love that are not Dragonlance but will be an influence in this game were written by a guy named James Lauder. James Lauder right now is working for Chaosium as I think the lead editor publisher for their new novel line. But back in the day, he wrote a pair of books, and they're books that meant a lot to me when I was younger, just like the Dragonlance novels did. Knight of the Black Rose and Spectre of the Black Rose. And if you've noticed that what our title is, you can already see that there's some influence there. But these were books that took the character Lord Soth, who's a major villain in Dragonlance, and put him into a protagonist role and really delved into his character. And to me, that was the first time in my life when I read these books that I ever started to look at villains or antagonists as more complicated, flawed human beings. And that's not to say that Lord Soth is a forgivable or redeemable character. That's not the case. But it totally spun me around and changed how I perceived characters. And that's something that I hold true in my characters that I play now, is that I try to get out of the mindset that to be a compelling character, you have to be a good guy. So we'll get into that and how mechanically we're going to bring that into play with our characters here in just a few. But man, D&D 5th edition, I think it's the best edition of Dungeons and Dragons, and I've played almost every edition. I didn't play the original, but I started the second edition, and I loved them. I grew up with them, but 5th edition is just amazing in the way that it puts the focus on the story and the agency of the players, and I love that. I think agency is really, really important to me. But Dragonlance and 5th edition haven't really had their perfect meeting, and so that's something that we've approached. In this game, I am creating a lot of new mechanics. I'm designing a lot of everything from scratch, magic items, monsters. That's a personal preference. I love connecting to NPCs and characters through the mechanics and the story. I love designing cool monsters. So everything I do will be created from scratch with specific, attunement to Dragonlance and the needs of Dragonlance. So to talk about some of the mechanics, just to kind of go through here, combat will be theater of the mind, and that means that player announces their intention, they roll the dice, and we decide what happens together, and we tell the story that way. There's not going to be any maps in our game because I think the pacing of Theater of the Mind for a streaming game is just really hard to beat. I want to keep excitement in fights. I want to keep the pace up. And to that end, I also, for NPC rolls, I won't be rolling damage. I will take the average damage for monsters and enemies unless like, let's say we're up against a boss level monster, right? A dragon. If I roll a dragon's breath, that could be really bad, or the players could get really lucky. There's a big range there. So if there's a super cool attack or something like that, I might roll the damage for that. But the players, you guys are going to get to roll your damage because you're the heroes of the story. You guys get to do it all, and Roll20 makes it easy. But for me, to keep things moving quickly, it'll be average damage. Let's see. So I guess before I talk about some of the new rules and mechanics, do you guys have any questions about Theater of the Mind or about any stuff that I've talked about so far?
I want to touch upon your Dragonlance Ravenloft crossover, because we have been shedding a lot of love on Dragonlance, but Ravenloft, I love what Soth did to the place.
So I do too. So Sithicus was Soth's realm in Ravenloft, and it's maybe not entirely canon. It was canon for a while, and it's not canon. I don't really care about any of that because, I'm focused on our particular story. So when I say that we're influenced by Ravenloft, this won't be a classic Ravenloft campaign. You're never going to see, I think he's cool, but you're not going to see Strahd von Zarevich. You're not going to be able to hop on over to Darken and try to take on Aslan. There will be influences of Ravenloft, especially mechanically and thematically. This won't be a specific Ravenloft campaign. And that's because I really do want to be able to visit different points in history and different major story beats of Dragonlance. So the Ravenloft element of the game, it's mostly just influence. That said, I love Ravenloft too. I could go on all day about that's what I've played the most of. It influences all of the games that I run. But here it'll just be an influence rather than an actual setting.
Oh, can we play right now? I got the itchy fingers.
Yeah, I'm really excited to start playing next week. And we'll talk about how we're going to kind of approach the beginning of the story too, because there's we're not all starting in the same time in the same place. So I guess I'll talk a little bit about that. For anyone who's not familiar with Dragonlance, I'll go through just a brief overview of the world and the setting. So the world is Krynn, and the major landmass of Krynn is Ansalon. It's a continent far to the south in the Dragonlance novels and the Dragonlance game. The continent's surrounded by oceans to the north, the west, the east, and to the south, there's this huge mass of wasteland called Icereach. It's a frigid, mostly unexplored, not civilized. Our story is going to begin in two different periods of time. And some of the characters will begin in one period. Some of the characters will begin in another period. How they come together, that's something that we'll find out through playing early on. But we're going to focus on two periods, and that's the Age of Despair. It's a period of time after the War of the Lands, which is a very, very famous story from the novels and the games, called the Blue Ladies' War. So in the Age of Despair, in the Blue Ladies' War, we'll be focusing on Palanthas, and this is a city whose gates have never been breached. It has stood firm throughout the centuries, and but an invasion is coming, and a battle is coming, and that's sort of where we're going to begin that. And the Age of Might, which takes place about 357 years prior to
Precisely
to the other period of time. The Age of Might was the high point of civilization and culture and power in Krynn. And everything was going really, really well. The gods loved the world. People were, again, as civilized as Krynn ever was. But the major power during the Age of Might was the Istar Empire. And Istar was ruled by king priests. And the final king priest, the last king priest in the long line, was a man named Beldinas, and he was maybe the greatest healer that had ever lived. But like many men who are given power and grow more and more powerful over their lives, their perception of the world it begins to change, it begins to shift, and sometimes become corrupted, oftentimes become corrupted. And Baldinus had this idea in his head that he was chosen to smite evil in the world, but the definition of evil over the course of his reign changed many times. And at first, what was an inquisition against people who could legitimately be considered evil became an inquisition against followers of neutral aligned gods, and eventually even good aligned gods that Baldinus decided were not actually good. So he had this idea that he, in his hubris, would demand from the gods that they come before him. Imagine a human being demanding that the gods come before him, bless him, and raise him up so that he ascends to godhood himself. And in doing so, he believed that he would destroy all evil in the world. He thought himself a great hero. But the gods really didn't feel the same way. In fact, in the 13 days prior to the major event that ended the Age of Might and began the Age of Despair, they sent him a series of warnings, a series of plagues. Storms racked Istar, which is a great city, storms that they'd never seen before. Trees wept blood. Many mysterious things happened, but he ignored their pleas. And there was an event called the Cataclysm that's sort of the pinnacle event in Dragonlance history, in my opinion. The Cataclysm was the point where he demanded the gods come before him. They hadn't listened. He hadn't listened to their warnings, and they threw a literal mountain down from heaven and smashed Istar, destroyed a huge amount of land, literally changed the shape of the world. And then they sort of pieced out. People thought that they turned their backs on humans. Nobody really knew what happened, but, and this is important for, especially for Allison, divine magic became weakened in the world. There were no more healers. There were no more true clerics that could cast divine spells with the same power that they did before, because the connection to the gods was gone. And so for the period of time we have in the Age of Despair, that's the reality. This is relevant to Greg's character, but one of the major factions in the history of Dragonlance are the Knights of Solamnia. These knights were fervently honorable. They had a strict code of honor that could be frustrating, but also heroic. And they were the heroes of the realm for over 1,000 years. But when they failed to stop the Cataclysm, a lot of people blamed them for it. A lot of people said that they should have done more. And though the knights continued on long afterwards, they were no longer considered well in the public eye. People changed their entire attitudes. And in the Age of Despair, Dragonlance is, I don't want to say post-apocalyptic, but post-traumatic world. There's a deep blow to the heart of the world that changed the lives of everyone who was born after that. And that's a lot of the world that we're going to be dealing with in Dragonlance. There are a number of great references. I just want to throw this out there besides the books, that if you're interested in learning more about Dragonlance, I know I refer a lot to the Dragonlance Nexus, which is a website. It's amazing. They have an incredible amount of information on the world, the characters, the story. These people are the real experts on Dragonlance, and they've been doing it for a long time. They've been keeping the love for Dragonlance going for a long time. It's a big part of the reason why I wanted to do this game, was because every once in a while I would go back to the Dragonlance Nexus and I would read something and I'd be like, oh man, I want to go back there. So if you're ever curious, if you ever want to read more, that's a great place to start. And of course, all of the novels are just phenomenally well written. All the characters are colorful and heartfelt, and you should check it out if you like to read. That's the world that we're playing in. Does anybody have any questions about the time periods or about the setting? Cool.
No, I'm good. I'm just gonna agree on the fact that the Nexus is an amazing resource. It's how I've been teaching myself Dragonlance. It's like, all right, I'm just gonna go deep delving into this wiki. No, it's a great resource and very beginner friendly too. So.
And Dawn, I would also like to say yes, the Dragonlance Nexus is fantastic. The link is in chat, and there has already been a donation for a mysterious item for the knight that is in your party, and there has also been a donation for inspiration for the entire party.
I've already marked it on my character sheet. As soon as I saw it, I was like, boop! Thank you.
That's awesome.
Hope, thank you very much, my friend.
We'll get to the mysterious item next week for sure when we start our story, but you'll all have inspiration now, which is a little bit different in our game than normal D&D inspiration, and we'll get to the donations and what all that means here shortly. But I guess that's a good time to kind of go through and talk about some of the rules, because I have some unique rules that I've used in previous games that I'm adapting here, and some new rules to try to, just try to up our game and focus our story so that we can tell the best story that we can. So
we're going through the campaign Bible here. I just want to be able to follow along.
Yeah, we're going through the campaign Bible right now. I'll skip over some things that don't matter, but I'll talk about all the new rules basically. So I talked about this briefly, but we'll go into more now. Kryn has 3 moons. It has Solinari, Lunatari, and Nutari, and these moons are the literal faces of the 3 gods of magic. These 3 gods decided that they wanted to stay close to the world so that they could observe the world and their followers, and they have a major effect on arcane magic in Dragonlance. So Solinari is the moon of the god of good magic. Solinari is the god of good magic. Lunatari, the god of neutral magic, and Nutari, the god of evil magic. Something that I think is important and really cool, like one of my favorite little bits about Dragonlance is that most people only see Solinari and Lunatari. Those are the 2 moons, the white moon and the red moon. The black moon, Nutari, can only be seen by people who have evil in their hearts, just inherent in them, and who use it who use it for their strength, their magic. Arcane spellcasters, once they reach 5th level in our game, which all of our characters currently are, whether they're a renegade or having passed their test of high sorcery, which allows them to become an officially considered wizard in the world, they become aligned with one of Kryn's 3 moons based on their personal ethics and alignment. In the lunar month in our game specifically, and this is a little different, 2nd edition had some really complicated lunar rules. I've sort of simplified it a little bit, but the lunar month in our world lasts 28 days. And when one moon outshines the others in the sky, spellcasters attuned to that alignment, spellcasters attuned to that moon, will gain certain benefits for that time period. So just to go through briefly, when the good moon Solinari is dominant, spellcasters will gain 1 spell slot at their highest level and regain 2 spell slots when they take a short rest. So these abilities are super powerful, and only in effect for a short period, about 20% of the month for any given spellcaster. Lunatari, neutral moon, spellcasters gain +2 to their armor class, and they have advantage on saving throws versus spells and magical effects. I think Lorelania probably cares most about this one. Nutari, the evil moon, the black moon, that can only be seen by a very small number of people on Kryn, when that's the dominant moon in the sky, in the night sky, you may cast any cantrip as a bonus action, any cantrip. So frostbite, whatever it is. You can still use your action to cast a spell of 1st level or higher.
Now, when you say any cantrip, I'm assuming that's the cantrips I have known and I cannot just pull out of the arcane.
Yeah. That's right, yeah. You still have to know the spell. but if it would normally take an action, it only takes a bonus action, and you can cast a second spell. And for Nutari, since you're our only wizard currently, within the 28-day period of the month, days 23 through 28, those are the days when Nutari is dominant in the sky. So those are the days, and I'll tell you too which moon is dominant, but those are the days where you will get that extra benefit. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Drool.
Mental
A
note,
couple of
do
our
not
other,
piss off wizard during 23rd through 28th
Right.
of month. Right.
You can't see the fucking moon there, Sir Knight.
I can count!
A couple of our other simpler house rules for this game. I am doing flanking rules, mostly similar to how 4th edition did it, but if two allied characters are positioned on opposite sides of an enemy, so that's either front or back or on their left and right sides, any allies within 5 feet of that enemy have advantage on melee attack rolls against it. Just melee, not ranged. And I love flanking rules. This is one of my favorite things that 4th edition did, and it increases the danger and the strategy for the players, but it also gives them more agency, especially characters who can benefit a lot from having advantage on their melee attack rolls, like Averin, for instance. So that's something that will come into play, and to keep in mind, even though we're not using maps, do think about like, where are you coming at this enemy from, or where are they coming at you from? Positioning will matter in so much as where you're facing in relation to everybody else. And I'll definitely help keep track of that for everybody. The other real simple change is the frightened condition. Frightened doesn't really exist for us. If a player ability or a player spell would cause the condition, I don't want to ruin that spell or ability, so there'll still be a benefit. It instead causes disadvantage on the next attack roll or ability check. So that will be a replacement for the frightened condition, where usually you can't move any closer, you have to move away. I think that for us doing Theater of the Mind, that's going to be not the most fun rule. So instead it'll work like this. And for NPCs and enemies who have the frightened condition, again, if Dragon has their roar, instead of causing the normal frightened condition, it will force the player to make a charisma saving throw or become affected by a temporary madness. So we'll talk about madness here real briefly. But my madness rules are a little bit different than the regular madness rules. Similar, but a little bit different. They're a little meaner. They're a little meaner than the regular games, D&D 5th edition's madness rules. But I've play tested them a lot, and I really enjoy them. They borrow a little bit from Call of Cthulhu. If you've played or watched Call of Cthulhu, they have some similarities there. If a character is
I'm so glad you cannot see my spell list.
I'm happy. I can see it.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
If a character can be affected, if a character is affected by a temporary madness, then there's a list, and I can roll randomly through the list. Like in regular D&D, it's a different list. More likely, I'm going to come up with something that's true to the story, true to the moment, true to the character, temporary madness that they're affected with for 1d10 minutes. If they're affected by a second temporary madness at the same time, they instead gain a level of exhaustion, which is going to be brutal in our game. If they're affected by 3 at once, if it stacks up to 3, then the temporary madness will go away and there'll be a lingering madness instead. This is very similar to permanent insanity in Call of Cthulhu. This is something that will stick with them the rest of their lives. And even though they can't be cured, they can eventually maybe learn to live with whatever it is. But again, instead of rolling randomly, we'll come up with something that's true to the story and true to the moment and true to the characters.
It may actually, in fact, come out of the game world and affect us as like real human beings. It's that brutal. I'm just
I am so prepared.
Okay. Wait. No, wait. You buried the lead here, Don. I want you now to tell. You haven't talked about healing yet, have you?
No.
I haven't talked about healing yet. So
Okay.
I did.
Okay. I've been sitting
mention-
back. I've been nice. I've been nice and listened to all this terrible stuff. But tell him how you're going to reward us with the healing aspect of your fun game.
I wouldn't have used the word reward. But punish. So, like I mentioned before, once the cataclysm happened, healing went away in the world. It's a big part of the stories, especially that Dragons of Autumn Twilight. It's a big part of that story as to what happened to the healing magic and the mystery of that. But mechanically, we have to use a different healing system in our game. And so we're using an entirely different system that I will tell you all about now, just in case you guys have any questions. I don't think it's so bad. I think it's all right, but maybe you guys feel differently about it. So to start with, healing spells. I'm going to let, because I feel like it's nice to clerics who have a lot of healing spells, and I don't want to make them feel like they're not powerful. I'm going to let them use their healing spells offensively against undead and fiends.
Oh, dude, that is so classic! I love you! I love this campaign! I'm sorry. That is...
I'll take it.
Oh, that is some old school shit right
Wait. Continue,
So-
Don.
there.
So because of the weakening of divine magic in the world, if you use your spell offensively against undead or fiends, they're going to make a Constitution saving throw, and they're going to have advantage on their saving throw because divine magic is weaker in the world. So it's not foolproof. You can cast your healing magic against them, but they definitely have resistance to it. So since there's no healing spells, there's a few other things that don't exist. Temporary hit points cannot be granted by spells or abilities, whether it's magical or not. Hit dice cannot be spent. We're not doing hit dice. We're not doing temporary hit points, not normally. Instead, we have a system that sort of uses short rests, long rests, and a condition I'm calling injured. And how that'll work is when a character, unless they're exhausted, a short rest will heal a character to their maximum number of hit points, which I think is really nice. That's 10 minutes. You go back up to maximum. You can't use it during the game, during a combat. You can't really heal during combat very easily. But you can still heal afterwards. And because we're not going to focus on a lot of small random encounters, we're going to focus more on big story moments and bigger encounters. I think that'll work out real well for the party. If you're unconscious and you make a death saving throw and you fail a death saving throw, the first death saving throw you fail, you get the injured condition. So what this means is that your maximum number of hit points is cut in half, and you're unable to heal the injured condition immediately. You also gain a level of exhaustion. So a long rest will heal exhaustion. And if you have already gotten rid of all of your exhaustion, which can be caused by madness, which can be caused by failed death saving throw, then a long rest will heal the injured condition. Long rest will bring you up to your maximum number of hit points, to your current maximum. But if you're injured, so you get brutalized, you have 2 death saving throws, you get brought back from the brink, you take an 8-hour nap, you will lose that exhaustion, but you're still injured. So that's how injury works. There is
Don, can I interrupt real quick, Don? I wanted to just so we can definitely make this sense. I happen to I'm a fan of in this particular campaign, melee fighter, being a knight. Could you explain to us you said short rest gets all of our hit points back. That's fantastic and wonderful. In the middle of a fight though, say a cleric wants to heal me. How much do they heal me for when they cast a healing spell on me?
1 hit point. No matter what, it's 1 hit point.
Could you say that just one more time for the cheap seats?
One hit point.
One hit point, everybody. One more than I had before I asked.
Yep, 1 hit point. So your 2 death saving throws down, you're about to die, and somebody casts a healing spell on you. The weakened magic, the divine magic, works enough to bring you back up to 1 hit point. I think that's really nice. I think that's really, because then you're awake, you can do some things again. I think that's enough.
You can die again. I love it. Couldn't love it anymore. Let's go.
Yep.
It's like you're reaching into my brain, and all the things I've ever wanted for D&D are coming true. I'm gonna cry all over again.
Well, I mean, I know it's sort of a meta episode here, right? So I don't feel too bad about meta gaming. But as I've been thinking about this, I mean, it dramatically changes the way that, as a player, I'm going to approach combat. Right? This is very, very different. Well, the shit just got real, right? That's it. This shit is real.
How did we even survive this far?
I don't know.
How did we even make it this far?
I don't know.
How did we even live to episode 0?
Who says that we're alive right now?
I know. I'm experiencing a little temporary madness right now, I think.
Every word Don says does 1 damage to my soul.
Gio, this artist, I don't know, they went into my brain. But look, the spell book that I got for this campaign is my actual fucking spell book in the art. How did they even know? I don't even remember sharing that information with them. Freaky and cool.
All of the character art you see on the screen was done by GeoDragon, who is amazing, and they did reach into Lorelania's brain and pull out that spell book. I definitely know it looked like that. I didn't share that information with them, but thank you.
I posted it once on my wish list like a year ago.
They looked your profile, Tia. They looked your profile.
You sneaky.
But yes,
You
everyone.
made my whole world. You have no idea. When I opened that, I literally jumped out of my chair and I flipped the fuck out. Can I swear on the screen? A little late.
Fuck! Are you kidding me? Absolutely.
Yes.
Gotta remember, this isn't my house. This is Grimm's house.
The last nice thing I'll talk about that I'm doing, and I think this is really nice.
Can you just stop packaging it like that? Just stop.
No, I'm gonna keep up. That's my brand. The first time your character dies, not when, but the first time your character dies, instead of dying, they'll survive. That'll be a mechanic. They'll survive, but with consequences that we'll sort of determine together with the story, with the player, with me. And I'm doing this because I'm going to throw some really challenging combat at you guys. I'm going to throw some nasty stuff at you, and I want you to succeed. I know as a player, sometimes you get the worst dice rolls and it's over in an instant, and that can feel bad. So there is a safety net for 1 death, 1 time. After that, all bets are off. Anything could happen, and we'll make sure that when that happens for your character, we come up with a really cool story that has a big impact on how you develop moving forward. That's something that's real important to me.
I'm not gonna die first. That's my only goal, is just don't die first.
That's a very slow sip.
Yeah, did you poison my drink? No.
That's all. Those are the unique rules that I've done so far. It's possible that as we play, some of these rules I play tested and played in games before. Some of them are new. They might get tweaked. It's possible that we'll add some more stuff. I'm totally down over time to kind of tweak and make things more Dragonlance, as long as they stay within the design concepts of 5th edition, which is easy to play, easy to understand, easy to share. And those are things that I'll definitely try to keep moving forward. But that's it for new rules. Do you guys have any questions about any of those rules?
I guess the only question I really have left on is who hurt you?
Who hurt you? I want to be you.
Mostly my own fault for all the things.
Oh, arcane magic is usually the weave in a lot of different worlds. Is that how we're looking at arcane magic here as well, as ley lines and weave, and that there's no nodes, I'm assuming?
Yeah, that's right. That's the way that I think we'll approach it.
And a lot of magic is done through constellations and the moon. And in Kryn, you were able to write your own spells. Is that something that if I as a player were able to begin collecting elements and pieces and things, would I be able to present them to you as original spells? I'm not saying it'd be something that would be easy by any means, but I gotta know.
I'm willing to take a look at anything you guys send me, and we can kind of talk about balance and whatnot. If you, but first, have you passed your test of high sorcery?
I'm just gonna send you a message.
Will not say. No comment.
I'm definitely open to talking about adaptations and whatnot. I am something that I've just done a lot of, so I feel good about is creating balanced mechanics. So if anything like that comes up, we'll have a conversation and we'll introduce it to the group and we'll go through the.
I have sent you some answers based on that.
Oh, I've seen.
Okay.
Don, I think it would be a good time now for me to also tell you that while we were discussing certain things about how you're going to really screw us in this game, we also received a boon for Tia, came in, and plot armor for Allison. So, thank you, Pope.
That's awesome. You guys are getting fleshed out. Good. You guys are going to be really able to handle. Thank you, Chad.
I hate for knowing you so well, Don. I hate it.
So one last thing I want to talk about is corruption. And this is a mechanic I alluded to before. It's a part of old school Ravenloft, and I love it. It is going to be a part of our game. Our game is about honor and loyalty and ambition and the darkness and imperfections inside every heart. And people will become more corrupted over time, and fighting that corruption is going to be something determined by role play and by a little bit of mechanics. So at the end of every episode, everybody's going to make a corruption saving throw for me. That's a charisma saving throw, which some people are going to be better at than others. And if they fail their saving throw, then they're going to roll and gain a little bit of corruption. When they reach 10 points of corruption, their corruption will reset to 0, and their alignment will shift either one notch towards chaotic or one notch towards evil. And that's something that I'll definitely leave up to the players in that moment, which way they go. But you can see that this will affect your characters over time, especially if you're unlucky or you make decisions that make you more prone to corruption. So I might give you advantage or disadvantage on that saving throw based on the decisions you've made in an episode. If I feel like you've made decisions that are more or less inherently evil or good than your normal behavior as your character. So I might give you advantage or disadvantage. I most times won't give you disadvantage or advantage. The difficulty check for your corruption saving throw, this is going back to the moons, is going to have to deal with which moon is dominant at the time. So when it's Solinari, the good moon, it'll be an easier check and less corruption that you gain. When it's Nutari, the evil moon, it'll be a more difficult check and more corruption that you gain. The one thing that I'll add is that should your alignment shift, and I'm not saying you should start doing evil things to metagame, but I'll throw this out there just in case you like it. When your alignment shifts, you are going to gain a level. It's not the only way you can gain a level, but you will gain a level if you shift towards chaotic or shift towards evil, because the dark forces that work in our story, which we've not introduced yet, they like it when the champions of good turn to darkness, and I like it too. So I'm giving you a
Just
little bit
come
of a
join
break.
me on the dark side of the moon, my friends. It's
Don,
very...
is it too late to change my character? Gio, are you in chat? Can you? I'm going to send you a new character sketch. This whole night thing might have been a terrible, terrible mistake.
A deliciously terrible mistake.
if you survive this, they should write
Might be
novels
a-
about you. I will sing your songs, Sir Knight.
Then start a humming, and everybody get your pens ready.
So one last thing I want to talk about just real quick before we get into your guys' story, your guys' characters, which I can't wait to hear about. And I see a question from chat, so I'll throw this out real quick. What happens if an evil aligned character gets corrupted? So this would be, for example, Honoria. Honoria, what is your current alignment?
Neutral evil.
Neutral evil. So it'll be harder for you to get disadvantage on your corruption throw. It'll be easier, if you're nice, it'll be easier for you to get advantage on your corruption throw. But should you shift again, the only place you can go is to chaotic evil. You're just one notch away from the lower left-hand side of that graph. So that's what would happen for you. You can get more chaotic, you can't get more evil. So at that point, if you get that far, I wouldn't make you make corruption saving throws. You can still do it if it happens or when it happens and just for fun, but it wouldn't have any more effect on your alignment.
Wait a minute. You mean if you go batshit evil crazy, you escape this mechanic?
Yeah, that's all you have to do.
You know what? Fuck you, Don.
And I think, like Call of Cthulhu, if that happens, or if somebody's character gets twisted to a point where you don't feel like you can be true to them anymore, I'm always open to a conversation about options. So don't feel like you're ever trapped. You guys have to have fun with your characters. I want you to have fun with your characters and with the story. But if you get to a point where you're chaotic evil and you don't feel comfortable playing chaotic evil, which is the hardest alignment to play in a group of people, then we'll have a conversation and we'll figure something out together that works for you. So that's what would happen in that case.
I will roleplay my way through this game, come hell or high water. This is gonna be so amazing.
And I will draw independent enemies to your location to try to enact mechanical justice.
Why? Don't you want me to counterspell for you so that you can get closer to the enemy, Sir Knight?
It's a trap. It's a trap.
That sounds like a good idea.
The one last thing I'll talk about before we get into characters is how chat can get involved and support the show, support the characters. You've heard a couple of donations come in already, which thank you so much. That's amazing. We haven't even gotten started yet. I'll go through and just talk briefly about the different donation and what you can do and what those things mean. Because as you've heard, there's some major challenges that I'm going to be throwing at these guys, so they'll need the help. But I'm not doing some of the things. We're doing some different things than what we've done in the past with other shows, what a lot of other shows are doing. There's no natural ones, there's no natural 20s, there's no automatic successes and automatic failures.
Okay. I was like, excuse me, if I roll a nat 20, I better get something out of it. You're talking donation wise. Okay, yeah.
If you roll a nat 20, it's going to be badass. That's and I want that. But donation wise, that's not something that we're doing for this show, because I want you guys to feel both. I know for me as a player, I love the challenge. I love to feel my successes. I love to feel my failures. And that comes through rolling and through decision making. So I never want to take that agency away from you, but I still want to create a way that chat can affect the story and help you guys out. You guys are going to need the help, to be honest, without making it an automatic success or an automatic failure. So the first way they can do that is through inspiration. Instead of like in normal D&D5E, where the DM or players sometimes give inspiration to the other characters, I'm going to let the chat give inspiration. And right now, I think you all have inspiration to start with, which is amazing. I'm also making inspiration a little extra for our game. So here's what it'll do. You can give inspiration to a PC or an NPC. So, I don't know, if a Death Knight shows up and you like that Death Knight and you want to give them inspiration, you're welcome to.
That part will be redacted in the VOD and on YouTube.
Why? Why would you want to do that?
I mean, I'm just saying, if you wanted to, you could do that. You can use inspiration in these ways. You can do the normal, you grant advantage on any attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. I'll also let you attempt something that would normally be narratively impossible. I'm not talking about like throwing your axe into the sun, right? That's beyond impossibility, but something that seems outside the normal, outside of what I would normally allow narratively, we can find a way to work that in if you want to use your inspiration for that. Or, and this is something that I know I've used in the past and have a lot of fun with, after you have a successful attack roll, you can then use your inspiration to deal maximum damage, which can be a lot of fun if you're doing something really cool. And I want you guys as your characters to be badasses. I want you guys to be heroes. When I think of Dragonlance and I think of the companions, I think of a group of disparate but amazing, true-to-life heroes that could do anything if they work together. And through inspiration, I think that'll make that possible in certain moments. So that's what inspiration does. You can donate to give inspiration to one person, the entire party, but it doesn't, just like a normal D&D5E, it doesn't stack. So if you have inspiration, you already have it. You have to spend it to get it. So I encourage you guys to use it and to do awesome things often. We can also donate to give plot armor. So I mentioned before, there's no temporary healing, no healing magic, so to speak. Healing magic is weakened in the world. But if you donate to give plot armor, you can give to a specific character and they will get, I think I've written 10, but what I mean, because it's going to scale as they level up, it'll be twice their level's worth of temporary hit points. So at level 5, which all the characters are starting off, that's 10 temporary hit points. As they level up, it'll become 12, 14, 16, and so on. And if you do that and you throw out plot armor and you have an idea for it, throw it in chat when you do it. If you as long as it's not something that entirely takes the story out of itself, like Krusty the Clown runs in and jumps in front of the sword, then I'm happy to work it narratively.
Sorry, of all the characters, you went with Krusty the Clown.
He's the guy that came in my brain. I don't know why.
I just want to see the guy that draws on your whiteboard in your brain, dude.
I want to see him too. I have some things to talk about.
I got some words for him, my God.
We have some words.
Some other things you can do. You can give a gift to a specific person, the Shadows gift, and that means either a mysterious item, which is going to be usually some sort of magical item, a boon, which is something basically like an item but more inherent, or you can immediately help them recover from an injury. So if they're injured and you gift and say, I want to give a gift and remove this person's injury, we'll come up with some story mechanic, some narrative device that will do that for them. The injured condition is really brutal, so that's definitely a helpful thing to do. But if you have an idea for a magic item or a boon, again, you can put that in chat, and I might not bring it into play the same game. I want to work it in a way where it's really cool and awesome with the story, and I want to make sure that I take the time to make it special. But if you have an idea, throw it in there, and if I can always reach out to you and we can communicate and come up with something together that works, and it's going to be awesome for the characters. And that's the same if you want to give if you want to bring in a specific monster or a boss of some sorts, which I know people here in the channel really like to do sometimes. I love designing monsters. If you want to do that, I will work with you and we'll design something from scratch, something special. And when it's done, I'll definitely make sure that the stat block, the mechanics, all of that gets to you. You can use it in your games. But if you have an idea for a special enemy, I'm all about that. Again, it can't come in the same episode because I want to take my time and make it as good as possible. But the following week or a couple of weeks, that's something that I would really enjoy doing. The Shadows Judgment. So I talked about corruption and how at the end of every episode, characters are going to have to make that saving throw. If you feel like a character should have advantage or disadvantage on their saving throw, for whatever reason, you can override me. If you do that donation, then you can choose disadvantage or advantage for any character. Now, if somebody's already picked that character for an episode, then you have to pick a different character because I don't want to pit you against each other. But if you have a favorite character that you want to see turn to evil, you can make that happen. You can impact that. If you have a favorite character that you want to see hold on to the light, you can help them out that way too.
Or wait, let me interject something there. The other comparison you could put out is if you have a favorite character you'd like to see turned good, as opposed to the good character turned evil, which I think was a little discriminatory. But go right ahead.
We don't have any mechanics for turning good. We just there's only one direction this goes in. But certainly you can hold on longer. And that's something that's something that mostly it's going to be determined by role-playing choices, but chat viewers, you guys can absolutely impact that too. And then we'll also do a couple of extra corruption-based things. These are not specific donations, but more goal lines. I think you're looking at the overlay right now. You see just below me a bar that's filling up. Those are goals for the episodes, for supporting the channel, helping to keep us going, giving us your love. When it fills up to either a combination of 5,000 cheer or $50, then we'll do a live straw poll. We'll do a chat poll with a viewer decision, and that decision is what character immediately receives 1d10 corruption. That's not at the end of the episode. They still got to roll at the end of the episode. And as I mentioned, if they get to 10, that's an alignment shift. So that's a major impact that the chat can have as a whole, getting to vote together. And if there's a tie, then we'll just do 2. We'll just have, if there's a tie between 2 characters, they both get it, and we'll just do it that way.
Paladine can't save you, Greg.
Likewise, if we hit that goal twice, if we get to 100 and 10,000, then we'll let the light shine for one character. The chat will do another poll. They'll do another vote, and the character that they choose, or 2 if they tie, their corruption's immediately reset to 0. Now, if they already have 0 corruption, or if they have 1 corruption or something, if it's already really low, in the chat maybe is not aware, then I'll be nice. I'll hold that off for an episode. I'll give them a chance to make that meaningful, because I want it to be meaningful. But if you want Greg's night to remain good and pure, that's something that you can definitely help with in that
And
regard.
it just happened as Mr. Pokey contributed and donated to give me advantage on said corruption saving throw.
I want to let y'all know now that I'm always going to scream against the goodness of the night, even with donations. I still love that you guys are doing them because you're supporting the show, and that every time I scream no, that's mostly in character.
You're not allowed to poison the well.
So-
No, but thank you, but no.
So look, I know that I'm flying kind of below the radar here. I know we're going to get to talking about characters in just a minute, but let's just note that the knight is not the only good character in this group. Okay.
Thank you.
Can I just put that out there?
In fact, in what alignment? What alignment is Sabria?
Sabria is lawful good.
That's a long
There's nothing I love like a good corruption story.
Oh man, 3 edgy,
So-
5 me.
Those are, first off, so we've already hit our goals for the episode, which is amazing. I didn't even think that was something that would happen for session 0. I'm gonna take those straw polls and we'll get around to them before the end of the episode here, or maybe towards the end of the episode for y'all. But I want to get off of mechanics now. We've been talking about the world and mechanics for a long time. I want to hear about your characters. I want you guys to, because you guys have put so much love into these characters. I want you to share them. So I'm going to go around in a circle again, talk as much as you feel comfortable about your character. I'll have some questions for you. Chat might have some questions for you. If a question's asked and you don't want to reveal secrets about your character or their story, you do have the ability to say, that's just something I want to keep hidden for now and reveal later. Because I think that's really important that you guys have the ability to do that. I don't want to put you on the spot.
Question. Can I
Yeah.
lie? So if somebody
Yes.
asks me a question about my character and I answer and I can just bold-face lie? Okay, good. Perfect.
Oh yeah. So we'll go around in the same order as before. And we'll start with Greg. Greg, do you want to tell us some more about Reardon, about Sir Reardon?
Soon to be Lord, Reardon Pathward. He is the Baron of Silver Axe, soon to be 34th Count of Wardenshire. He is a Knight of the Crown. He served in the Vingard campaign underneath Lorana, the Golden General. He is a knight. He follows the oath, the measure. He wears the medal, and it is not only on him, but in him. He is the person that you want on the front lines. He is the person that you don't want to be talking shit about from the back lines. Wizard. What else do you need to know about Knight?
I want to know if Reardon has ever broken his oaths.
Define broken.
I mean, does he believe he's broken?
I prefer not to answer that question.
Yeah.
Seems pretty clear to me.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Denied broken.
He believes that he is being tested. He does not believe that he has broken anything.
Okay. So the oath and measure is very important to him, and this is a Solamnic Knight thing that they're very rigid about historically. What does it mean to him? Was he born into believing that this was the most important thing? Did he become a knight because he was driven to become a knight, or was he sort of raised into it?
No, a little of both. He was destined to become one because of the way that his family's upbringing kind of sent into servitude with the knights, but it was what he was never forced or herded into this path. He believed himself to be for the armor. He believed himself to be sheathed in the kingfisher. This was what he's always wanted. It's not a dream or a lie he's told himself, despite, what maybe probably a lot of other younger knights or squires would say, oh, I really do want... No, he wants this. He wants to fight. He wants to defend. He wants to protect. He wants to live the life of honor, follow the oath, follow the measure, do it to the best of his ability. His only gray areas, and it kind of lends itself to what is, the test that I'm alluding to, that he's going through, is that he's a little disillusioned with the world, not necessarily the order, but the world as it's been presented to him, and the rewards that have been lauded on people that he seems or views as traitors. He can't come to grips with that, and it's something that his mind is constantly struggling with. His heart is always behind the metal. He doesn't ever think about dropping it, but his mind is thinking, and it's thinking dark thoughts.
You said that an inspiration for you was specifically from the original novels, right? Like that's part of what's made this character so personal for you. Do you want to talk about that inspiration at all?
Yeah, I joke around a lot and scream and point at Tia, who I love dearly. This character, when I read Dragons of Winter Night, and I read that Sturm's sun shattered, the little boy that read that, his did too. And Riordan Pathwarden was born then, because I told myself that if I was there, I could have stopped it. And that's where Riordan Pathwarden came from. He could have helped, or he could have fallen in the snow beside Sturm. And that's my character.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, we will cross over. We will see Dragonlance characters that people will know and love in this campaign. We'll cross over events. Some things might end up differently. I don't want to lock us into this happened before, so this has to happen now. But I'll leave it there. Billy, tell us a little bit more about Rook On.
Yeah, first off, how the fuck am I supposed to follow that up?
Just like that, just like a Minotaur would.
we might
That
need
was the most Minotaur response ever.
I think the official drinking game is going to be anytime somebody cries.
Oh man.
I'll keep the scotch on hand. Okay, so Rook-On for me, so it's not tying directly for me into any sort of parallel from Dragonlance, but rather an immersion in a savage culture. They have laws, so there is honor. The rule set from the Solamnic Knights is very different. So this is very much a might makes right. And there's a lot of good and a lot of bad that can come from that based on the character wielding the might. So culturally, Minotaurs compete in the Great Circus in the Minotaur Empire. And like your standing is determined based on how well you succeed. So an evil character who is very, very strong will have his will imposed on wherever he's leading based on how he succeeds in fighting. And so Rook-On started in a dark place, having no traceable bloodline. You can imagine that in this type of culture, he had to work twice as hard for twice as long to get the scraps off the table that he saw others around him just being given based on who their ancestors were, and he didn't have that. So it's a lot about trials, but we're not starting. His story isn't starting there. So that's his backstory, and where I feel the campaign will start, it will be after that system has been compromised for him.
It definitely will. That's something we'll get right into next week. You're a barbarian rogue multi-class, right?
Yep. So Barbarian 3, Rogue 2, because in addition to strength, the Minotaurs also valued cunning. I saw a question in the chat: did he fight in the circus? I will go ahead and say yes, he did, but I'm not going to reveal any sort of results yet. But he did fight in the circus.
I know a little bit about that, and it's some really good stuff. As far as which part of him is dominant, yeah, obviously you said 3 barbarian, 2 rogue. Is that something? Is he about equal? Do you imagine him as he's these 2 different mechanical ideas in one character? Is he growing in one way or another at the start of our adventure?
Honestly, I'm gonna leave it all to gameplay. Like, I noticed a question about probably some sailor background. Yes, there's gonna be a sailor background, and you can't really quantify a sailor as 100% rogue or 100% barbarian in Minotaur culture. So I designed Barbarian 3, Minotaur 2 based off the sailor, the Reavers of the Blood Sea, that kind of stuff, where they're almost Viking-like. Not all Vikings were brutes. Not all Vikings were like Floki and Vikings either, but maybe somewhere in between, where everything was an advantage. They had weapons, but more so they had cunning and not an adherence to a particular formal combat code. They could kind of adjust and use it as their own. As far as character depth goes, I don't want to reveal too much, but he's there's a lot of people personally in my life that this is kind of like a character exploration, but I've known a lot of military veterans who I'm very, very close to that have gone through a lot of stuff and are not in the best mental condition, and they deal with that in their own ways. And there's a lot of people I care about deeply, relationships all over, that suffer from some sort of really deep-seated anxiety, and I've helped them through a lot of stuff, and I've seen how they can cope with things and how the world can just feel so incredibly dark for them, and another person's eyes would see something totally different, and how trauma can really fucking wreck somebody on a lot of different levels, and we'll learn about his particular trauma and how the conditions it gives him and how he deals with it.
That is... Thank you for sharing that, dude. Thank you.
Well, I'm and just like with Bill, don't feel like you have to overshare. I do want you guys to reveal things about your characters as you go, but we'll talk a little bit about at the end here, the personal nature of roleplay and personal nature of characters, because I think it's really important. And I want it to be a big part of the game we're playing, the story we're telling. I do want to move on so we can get through everybody. And I want to know more about Sabria.
Yeah, Sabria. Sabria Sunashal she exists in the Age of Might, and in those fateful final days on the eve of the Cataclysm. She was born and raised near to Istar in Aldhaven, to the north and west of the city. Her father was a glass blower who spent most of his days over a hot furnace, making bottles for trade goods that were passing through their city, through their town to the heart of the empire. And as was customary with the trade, the family were devout worshippers of Sirion, who is the god of light and fire and creativity, the alchemist, as he's known in other parts of the land. Sabria, as a young girl, took to the faith with incredible zeal. By the time she was 14, she had become an adept and an attendant at their local temple. By her 18th birthday, she swore a priest's vows, and then immediately volunteered for one of the church's most arduous assignments. She volunteered to be a missionary to the desert peoples to the south in the Sea of Shifting Sand. She spent 5 years there, living and working and serving among those people. She rose to be a trusted member of the clan and stood by the clan leader's side in warfare, in fact. And after about 5 years of exemplary service, she was summoned back to Istar by the high priest of Sirion himself for induction into a secret order of the church, the Order of the Sun. And the ceremony that was held in an ancient chapel there in the Cathedral of Flame in Istar is still the proudest moment of her life. And she now, for the last year or so, has served the high priest himself on missions of importance to the church, both inside and outside the empire. One of the things that's so fascinating for me about this world as a player are some of these incredible mechanics that you've come up with, Don, and knowing that I wanted to play a cleric in this campaign, and knowing that that traditional role of healer was not really going to be a role that she could fulfill effectively, is what caused me to look elsewhere and to kind of shift back into mechanics for a moment, to look into the feat the feat tables for her, a level 5 character here, right? So I took the feat of Weapon Master for her, which opens up all of these new weapons potentially outside of those that are traditionally available to clerics. So she's has proficiency in scimitar, longbow, longsword, glaive, and so her role is as a priest. She is a zealot in the truest sense, but she is a warrior priestess and now serves in these secret missions for the high priest of Sirion himself.
Sirions are really, really cool Dragonlance deity, and not one that gets a lot of focus in a lot of the stories. What was it about Sirion that kind of called out to you personally?
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, one is just that there's not a lot of focus there. So there's, I'm a sucker for canon. I like lose sleep if I violate canon, right? So knowing that there's some open space there to play with was compelling to me, and the light domain, as I mentioned earlier, it naturally makes sense, more sense for Sirion than perhaps for any other deity in the Dragonlance pantheon. So that drew me in. And I think there's one other thing. You're talking about the personal nature of role playing. Some of you that know me well will know that that I spent a pretty significant period of my life as a person who, frankly, is not all that different from Sabria. Sort of a religious zealot who's deeply, deeply convinced of her own rightness and righteousness, right, in the world. So this is, in that sense, kind of an easy character for me to play. Now, please, those of you that know me now, right, can vouch for, that's certainly not who I am today. But it's really, really interesting for me to kind of ease back into that space a little bit, and to begin to kind of imagine what it will be like, not what it might be like, because I know where this is going, right? What it will be like as she begins to give in, right, to some of her baser instincts. Her fall from grace is going to be fiery and legendary.
I'm really, really excited about this character, and I know, like I said before, you've written a lot about it. You've done a lot of thinking and imagining about this character. So there's a lot that I don't want to ask right now. One thing I am curious about, as I was reading through, was her relationship with her family. Was that a good relationship? Was it a healthy relationship? How does that relationship connect to her current faith?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was a good and healthy relationship. There's no, the darkness that is hidden in Sabria's past isn't in her home. And, you know, Sabria was the little kid who always wanted to pray at meals, right? And who felt a sense of her own specialness, and to a certain extent, a sense of power in that, right? And so, you know, she leaving home was an easy decision for her. Taking vows was an easy decision for her. The church is Sabria's family, and is her highest priority and her highest goal, and everything else. Well, you know, Don, almost everything else is a distant second here. Last thing I'll say about her is talking about secret missions from the High Priest. You will get to see in Sabria's first episode, the secret mission that she is currently on is a doozy, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait to play this out.
Yeah, it's gonna be a very interesting challenge for Sabria. I'm really looking forward to that. We'll keep moving on here. I know we're starting to run a little short on time, but I think we're just in the right spot. Laurelania, how much are you willing to tell us about Honoria?
First off, since I have mod powers here, I know that there's already music playing in the background, but this is the tune that Honoria listens to in her heart. What I will reveal about her is that Honoria was the youngest sister of many in a pleb family. Her days and nights were spent wondering where her next meal was going to come from, and very, very strict parents. And I'm going to put most of that behind the roleplay veil for now, but it will come out in the future. She saw the only thing that mattered to her family was acquiring more money, more wealth, more power, more station. Her sister was wed off to a cruel and unloving man. And again, behind the roleplay veil for now, but I'm sure many of us are aware of the darkness and the horrors in the world, especially those that can happen around medieval times. This wasn't the life that she saw for herself. She left home. Some people have wanderlust. Some people go out into the world because they seek adventure. They seek to please their gods. They seek knowledge. They seek love. Honoria wants power. It was ingrained into her since she was a child that she was nothing, that she would become nothing, that the only thing that mattered to her was her body and what she could do for other people. The thought of it still turns her stomach. But then different darkness came. A new moon. Whispers in her ear of things that she could accomplish, dreams that woke her in the middle of the night, sweat dripping down her brow. Words began to form. Spells pulled from the arcane power given to her in her own hands, something that no one could take from her. Nothing can pull the magic from her. And there's more magic out there. And there's more power. someday, fat innkeepers will bow to me. That's what I'll tell you about Honoria.
She sounds terrifying and amazing. Yeah, I want to keep a lot of that behind a veil because there's a lot there. But thank you for sharing that. I'll ask this, and you can not answer or lie or whatever you like. Has Honoria ever met anyone she could trust?
Trust is a funny word. Trust is a funny word. Yes, of course. Contracts are made. You can trust in a contract. It's legally binding.
All right.
If you want to know who, no.
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 No, that's okay. I love, if you guys keep secrets from me, please do. I love being surprised.
We definitely do not
that-
have a secret player chat. 100%. Not at all. Nope. I take bribes.
We'll go. We'll move on here to Kiana and Averin. I want to hear what you're willing to share. And I know like a lot of these folks, you've written quite a bit about Averin, but I want to hear what you'll share right now with us.
All right, so Averin is she is a half elf, and her elven parentage is Qualinesti. So I saw people guessing what she was. She is half elven Qualinesti. I'll let you know right now. She is a former assassin. That was her job. That's what she did. And then she was basically betrayed by her family. Been on the run for 6 months. And the game begins with her returning home, in a sense, to finish the job and do what she couldn't do that night when she was betrayed.
Yeah, that's something that we will definitely spend some time exploring in our game and in our story. Do you have any thoughts about who her parents were, or is it just she doesn't know, so I don't know?
It's kind of more the latter. She was abandoned at a very young age, whether that's because her parents left her or because her parents died and just never came back home. She never really had another family in mind. Well, she kind of knew, I had people who created me in a sense, but her father is the guild leader of this Assassin's Guild, and that's all she knew.
Okay. Yeah, I won't push that any further because I think it's going to be a lot of fun to reveal that as it comes. We're going to go ahead and move to the end of our session 0 now. I feel like we've had a great chance to sort of start to get into the skin of these characters and this world, which has been a lot of fun. I will say we've hit both of our goals for the episode. So we put both of those polls up in the chat. I'll give that just another couple of minutes if you guys haven't had a chance to vote yet. These will come in effect within the first 2 episodes. Characters that gain corruption, characters that are protected against whatever initial corruption might come their way. And thank you guys in chat for your support. Before we move to the end, there's a couple of things I want to say. The way that we're going to start the story, I mentioned we're starting in 2 separate ages. We're starting in Palanthus in the Age of Despair, after the Cataclysm, after the gods have left the world. The Age of Despair will be our first episode. That will be 1 week from tonight. That will have some of our cast, but not all of our cast. So it'll be a partial group because I want to give more time to these characters and their initial stories to begin with. We'll bring everybody together. And then the second week, we'll do the Age of Might. And this is just a few days, just a little over a week before the Cataclysm. It takes place in Istar, which is where the King Priest was. It's the center of the civilized world at the time, at the height of the world's civilization, just before the fall. We'll be doing that. You might guess who I think people have mentioned what age they're in, but the Age of Despair will be Rearden and Rookon and Honoria. We'll get to those characters in week 1, and then in week 2, we're gonna spend some time with Allison and Sabria and Kiana and Everin, and we might have a surprise in week 2 as well. We'll let that happen when it happens, but that's how we'll start, and then we'll bring the characters together. How we do that, what that means, I won't get into. We'll let the story tell it, but I love giving characters the space to grow that way. So that's how we're going to start it. One last thing I want to say before I wrap up the episode. I feel like I could say thank you to chat and to you guys for being awesome. The players for being awesome a million times. But just to touch on the personal nature of stories, I think you can probably tell by the way people are talking about their characters in the story. There's a lot there that's personal, and I'll share a little bit about what I believe. Maybe what I believe more than anything else in the world is that there is an inherent magic, an inherent power to storytelling, and that doesn't mean it doesn't matter what the craft is: dance, visual art, role play, acting. It all matters. I believe that power, that magic, is how we come to understand the world around us, how we look at ourselves. And thinking about actors for a second and role players, even the best character actors, I like, for me, Daniel Day-Lewis is somebody I love. He transforms himself entirely for every role. He's amazing. Psychologically, though, there's still a part of him that followed those avenues to craft that character that he portrays on screen. And because of that, no matter how character actor the actor is, every character is still an inherent part to himself. And I think you see this a lot with role players. I know for myself, when I create a character, I get a tiny part of myself, a tiny truth, and I blow that truth up, and I build my character around that truth. And because of that, I am that character in a way, and I think that's important. So I thought I would mention that in our hearts, we are these characters, and these characters are us, at least to some extent, no matter how different they may seem. But to the viewers and to the players, this is the kind of game that I want to play. This is the kind of story I want to tell. A story where within our characters, there's a tiny piece that's us, that's vulnerable, that's strong, that is fun, and that can fucking slay dragons. And that's what I want to see. I want to see that part of us slay dragons.
Or a dragon queen.
Or dragon queen. Both. Lots of dragons. Yeah, so that's the kind of story I want to tell. I feel like you guys are all the perfect people, my friends, to tell the story with. Really excited to get into it. And that's it. That's all I have to say. If you guys have any questions that we haven't answered, you can tweet at us, you can message us. I'm happy to answer questions. Everybody here is super helpful. But thank you for joining us for session 0. I, at this point, am going to hand it over to Greg.
Everybody, thank you so much for the follows, chat. You have been fantastic. I know that in the to mirror what Dawn said, in the weeks and leading up to this, the love for Dragonlance is so profound in the community. It's sort of overwhelming. And it's so great to be able to jump into this and to have a captain like Don taking us through this, because if you were watching Don and listening to his words and you didn't hear passion ooze from every syllable and a conviction of spirit, then you need to go back and listen again, because it is fantastic, and it is why this is DM Don, and I will gladly take my night of 30 years into the hell that he has created. Let's go around and say goodnight to everyone for now, as we will be coming back to tell this story with all of you. I would like to say especially thank you very much to Pokey and Geo and Pope. Thank you so much for all the follows and all of the subscriptions. Please, if you haven't hit that follow button, do so now. Just so you know, when we go live next week, you can be here with us, sit down around the campfire, return to Kryn, and watch Tia kill me when I least expect it. You're going to want to be here for that. But let's
Why
go
would I
around.
betray you? You haven't done anything to hurt me.
I listened to your thing. It all spoke of killing someone like me. Let's go to Dawn. Dawn, how are you doing, my dear friend? I can't say thank you enough, but tell us where we can find you on these here internets.
Oh, you can find me at Donathan Fry on Twitter, and please do use that if you have any questions or anything about the game. I play a lot of other games. You can check them out there. I post about them. I also share other things that people are doing in the community. I am doing great. This is my first time DMing a full campaign on stream, and I've taken a break from DMing, long-term campaigns for a while. So, there's some anxiety more so for this than for the actual story. I'm really pumped about next week. I know exactly how it's going to start, and I can't wait to go on that ride with everybody. But I love this chat. I feel like I know more about where you guys are coming from and where you want to go with the story. I can't thank you all enough. I do want to say we did get the straw poll results in for what's going to happen. We'll start with a good one. So the light still shines. This character will have will end their first episode with their corruption reset to 0. And I may push that back to the second episode too. It is Sir Reardon. He is protected. The oath and measure will stand for at least an episode. We'll see what happens after that. On the other end of the spectrum, which character begin their story with an automatic 1d10 corruption? This should not be a surprise. This is Honoria. She probably
I voted for myself.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
That makes me so happy.
Me.
So at the start of you, when we introduce you next episode next week, the first thing, or maybe the second thing that we'll do is roll 1d10 and see how much closer Honoria gets to chaotic evil. That's gonna be a blast. So thank you guys again for that. That's all from me. Thank you.
Fantastic. And everybody, please follow Dawn. Links are in chat. I will say this, as much as Tia and I go at it in character, if something happens, chat, you're going to need to be with Sir Reardon, because he will rush to her aid. If she is fighting shoulder to shoulder with him, a comrade, she is. Let's go over to Kiana. Kiana, how are you doing, my friend, and where can we find you online?
I'm so freaking hyped. Why is it not next week already? God damn it. Where's the time fuckery when you need it, Greg?
I'm not in charge. I'm getting time fuckeried with you.
Oh no, I am so excited for this game. I cannot wait to delve into the story of all these amazing, compelling themes of like guilt and redemption and all this fun stuff with this amazing cast and their characters. I love all their characters already. I'm in love with all of them. God damn it, so attached to them already. But yes, man, until next week, you guys can find me over on Twitter at KennaS. Best way to figure out what I am doing, because I am all over the internet playing role-playing games almost every day of the week. Quite literally, I'm about at a point where I only have Sundays off. And you know what? This is the best life I could ask for. So please hit me up over there. Let's chat about things. You'll get to see more hints about Averin over the next couple weeks. But I'm so excited to play with you guys and see whether black roses bloom.
Absolutely. And we'd like to welcome in the raid from WebDM our friends Pruitt and Jim and Wise Papa Grant. Everybody, we're sorry.
I'll see you guys at PAX Unplugged. Yes.
We're wrapping up our session 0 here. This is a Dragonlance fantastic dark vision brought to us by our wonderful DM, Don. If you have a chance and if you are a fan of Dragonlance or of any of these fantastic people you see around here, please check out our VOD. It'll be up on YouTube soon. It is worth it, I believe, just to see the passion, as I said, inherent in every syllable. And if you want to catch us next week when we go live, hit that follow button. Hey, thank you, right on cue. I appreciate it very much. And now we're going to go down to my dear friend, and I'm sure the companion that Sir Reardon will never wish ill on verbally. Tia, how are you seriously, my friend? And it is here. We are playing in Dragonlance.
We made the group chat a little after we all figured out who was going to be a part of the party, and I cannot wait to play with each and every single one of you so much. But I'm old. Greg is old. We have been flipping the fuck out over this. The relationship that the knight and the wizard are going to have is something that I know that it's not just because we're trying to emulate the books, but there is a huge part of that is going to influence it for us. There is a massive part of it. And so I do say to my other companions, we're going to be fine. We're going to be just fine. My dear Sir Knight, I wish you the best of luck. And everything that we do in character, just remember, it's in character, buddy. I love you. Can it be Wednesday yet? Oh I
my
also
God.
I need to ask, because on Twitch you cannot rebroadcast or watch video unless you have the express permission of the person granted, but I may look over a director's cut of this VOD and watch it on my own stream as a replay so that I can get my community a little bit more involved in hype as well, and if that's all right with you. Guys.
Absolutely not. No, I'm
Well, you know what? I'll just watch it offline then. Fuck you.
Absolutely. I couldn't say yes anymore. And we skip over now to my dear friend Allison. Allison, you and I, and so many of us here, are ingrained with the Dragonlance. It is here. I really hate good characters, which is funny because I'm playing a knight. I couldn't love yours anymore. Where can we find you online, my friend? And I just can't wait to play next week.
Me either. Can't wait to see that group, your group next week, and then the week following, Kiana, to get to reveal some things about our characters as well. I'm so hyped for this. Super excited. I want to say one last thing though. We have mentioned her name multiple times tonight, but she needs one more shout out, and that's Margaret Weiss, one of the creators of this world, who not only has created this world that we love so much, but has been an amazing support for us on Twitter, retweeting.
She named my
commenting.
character. She named Honoria. That was gifted. The
Yeah.
way that she interacts with her fans and shit is just next level. I love her.
It's amazing. So having that support is just super cool. If you haven't already, go over to Twitter and follow her. And show her the same love and support that she's showing to us. You can catch me there at Allison Robinson with 2 L's and a Y. Catch me back here on the channel very, very soon on Sunday nights for the final season of Project Athena, another game and world and team that's just dear to my heart. Love you all so much. So hyped for Wednesdays.
I couldn't be any more hype. And last but certainly not least, new to the channel, awesome. Cannot wait to see what direction he takes this bull in, because I am already in his corner, both as a player and as a character. Billy, welcome, my friend, and where can we find you online?
Thanks, champ. You could find me on the Twitter at Bill of the Forest. I'm so stoked. Ever since we started this character chat, I've been face rolling like a little boy. So I'm so excited. This is one of my awesome archetypes. And if Riordan and Anaria are like two pieces of bread on the end of the spectrum, I'm gonna be that
Meaty sandwich.
I was gonna go marshmallow peanut butter, but if you want to go through like a Thousand Island dressing corned beef type of deal, I'm really looking forward to starting there with y'all and sharing my story with every one of you classy MFers.
I love you, brother.
Nice. And you know what? There's no really other way to end it than to say that we're all classy MFers. And what we're going to do is, everybody, if you're sticking around here, let's go say hi to our buddy Speedy over at Not So Speedruns. Say hi, say that you came here from Dragonlance, you came from Kryn, you're just biding your time until next Wednesday, when, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my non-binary friends of all ages, we're going into Dragonlance. I get a shiver every time I say it, and I'm going to tell you this. I am known to be a cosplay pimp. I absolutely love to dress up. I have dropped major coin on Sir Riordan. And you know what? I will never look at those pennies as anything but blessings spent towards the fulfillment of a dream. Come back here. Don's story is going to rock. All of these players have stories that already rock. They're just waiting to be told. And every Wednesday night from 8 to 10, or a little bit after if this thing gets good, we're going to be telling them right here. Hit that follow button. Check us out on YouTube. Check all these great people out on the Twitches and the Twitters. And by God, we're going to see you all next week. But until then, take it easy. And, that's not even Speedy. I'll send you over in a minute. I love you guys. Take it easy and have a great one.
Thank you.